What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Danny's to Talk. I'm your host, Robert, and today it is back to school season, and I've been watching a lot of stuff. So, aside from talking about all the back to school stuff been going on this last week, um, I recently watched Common Side Effects, The Lazarus Project, Department Q, Arte, and played a few demos and betas and all that fun stuff. So, before I get into all that, as always, if this is your first time here, then welcome. But if you're a returning listener and or a watcher, then welcome back. Y'all know here at Danny's to Talk, it's all about fatherhood and family, manga, anime, lots of TV shows, movies, and of course, some video games. So, it has been a few weeks again. Like, man, I've talked about it before, but having this podcast and YouTube channel, all that stuff, whatever, it is so interesting to always reflect on how much time has passed since I last did something because there's always a timer ticking down somewhere. So like I looked, I was oh, when did I upload or put out that last episode or whatever? And it was like 19 days and some change, which it'll be 21 by the time y'all see this on Wednesday because I'm recording this Monday night. So and I'm like, man, freaking 3 weeks, man. But yeah. So I hope everybody out there is doing well. Shout out to all the parents out there dealing with the back to school stuff. So like I said, school is back in session. My kids started last Wednesday, so a few days, and then today or whatever. So, but overall though, things went pretty well. I've now got three 10th graders, a 7th grader, and a 2nd grader. So, some shifting parts and stuff because my oldest three are now fully at high school. So, I've mentioned before how the school district out here, 9th grade, is still at the middle school. So, our middle schools in this school district is 7th, 8th, and 9th. But of course, if you do athletics and different stuff like that, you would travel between the middle school and the high school for athletics and different stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so now they're fully on site at the high school, and my middle son finally elevated from elementary to middle school now, and he's kind of figuring stuff out on his own. He's kind of having to uh, getting a little bit of the realization of like, hey, there is more personal responsibility and accountability because now obviously being in middle school and stuff, whatever, it's more trust put onto the kid of like, hey, keeping up with your stuff because it's already done a couple of times where oh he left a folder at home or oh he left a binder or this and that and stuff, and so just kind of having that conversation of like, hey, you gotta buckle down on this stuff, man, cause I told him, cause I'm like, you get up at least an hour before you even leave the house, and it's an hour and a half before school starts. So out here, all my kids are kind of staggered time wise, so it works out really well for us. So like Vash in 2nd grade, his school he goes to, um, they can start being dropped off at 7:15, and then class starts at 7:45 for them. My middle son, they can start being dropped off about like 7:30, 7:40. But school starts for them at 8:15. And then my older ones, their stuff is kind of up in the air because, if they have athletic stuff in the morning, sometimes they gotta be there at 7 or so. But their normal school time starts at 8:45. So everybody's pretty much like 30-minute chunks, whatever. So it's like, 7:45, 8:15, 8:45. So it kind of works out good. And now finally this year, all the schools are in the same direction of me going to work. So, one of the biggest headaches, even though it didn't happen too much recently, but if there were times when my kids were in the elementary school, whatever, the elementary school that everybody else used to go to was 10 to 15 minutes in the opposite direction of me going to work. So if I ever had to drop anybody off in the morning or do anything like that, I would have to go 15 minutes the opposite direction and then come back past the house to then go to work. Whereas now everything is in the same direction and stuff. So I have nice smooth routes to drop off who I need to drop off and all that stuff. But yeah. So all in all, like I said, everything's going good. Vashi enjoyed his first few days at the school, back in the swing of things and stuff. But yeah, so we will see how how things go. Because the older four are all trying out different and new stuff. Like I mentioned, my middle son, now being in middle school, he's trying out in band. He's gonna try out in basketball. Um, I know he was still gonna try to do some type of foreign language, so I think he's gonna either try to do either Arabic or Mandarin. And yeah, so and then the twins. I've mentioned before how they both, love doing art, which they're hanging up. I got some of their art stuff, whatever, that they have done for me in the past. But one of them is doing an animation class. The other one is doing a graphics design class, which is pretty cool. One of them is also doing a ASL for sign language and stuff, which is pretty dope. My oldest son, he is doing like I think it's like an intro to business or some type of business finance, something like that type of class. So, but yeah, so it's just pretty cool just seeing everybody kind of branching out, finding different little subjects and stuff that they want to kind of experiment with. Engineering was the other thing my son wants to do too. So, but yeah, so that's our first, foray back into the swing of things for school and stuff. So, but yeah, aside from that, everything else life wise has just been a crazy roller coaster these last few weeks. Like 2 weeks ago, uh, somebody freaking backed into my wife's car, this freaking truck. So now, like, the passenger side of the front of the car is all jacked up and stuff, man. Like, the hood is like getting exposed, and we think because we were looking at it a while ago, we were like, man, like, is it getting worse? And I think it might be from like the heat and stuff is like expanding. I don't know, but it got kind of banged up pretty good. Still overall okay, still drivable and stuff, which is good. But of course, working with insurance and lawyers and all that jazz, whatever and stuff. So, cause it was just very dumb, the whole situation. Cause like my wife's grandmother was driving my wife's car. She went and got the girls from practice at the high school and was going to pick up the oldest son from the rec center. And along the way from with the girls to the rec, whatever, uh, they had to detour through a neighborhood or whatever. And so there was kind of like a stopping point where they kind of came up to whatever, and there was this truck. And so the truck like it turned on like it's about to get ready to go, but then the dude just threw it in reverse and hit the gas and boom, just smashed right into the front of the car, man. And so yeah, so it's a whole bunch of mess going on with that and stuff. But like I said, I'm just grateful the car is still drivable and that nobody was seriously injured and all that stuff. So, but yeah, aside from that, yeah, everything else like I said, just trying to maintain and keep pushing and keep going. So let's go ahead and dive into some of this stuff that's been going on these last few weeks. Just a couple of it, just like little news thingies I want to shout out really quickly. Uh, Anime wise, Made in Abyss, a new movie is coming out. So I guess they announced like going forward, they're just gonna do movies instead of trying to do seasons of the anime. And I get it because the release of the manga is super slow, super slow. Because I remember after season one came out many years ago, I had started reading the manga, but even from where season one ended to where the manga was at the time, it wasn't that many chapters. And so I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I caught up, whatever. And so at that time, I was used to like the weekly manga release schedule. I'm trying to think if maybe if Attack on Titan was out, maybe I was kind of like even like learning about like monthly releases. But Made in Abyss, it was just kind of like, the chapter will come out someday type of stuff. So I kind of stopped worrying about the manga and just waited until the anime came out years and years and years later. But anyway, so yeah, so they're doing movies and stuff, and so the first movie is gonna be coming out next year. So very excited for that and stuff. So and then the other one that I am super excited about is Akane Banashi got a anime announcement that I was so happy to see. So yeah, Akane anime coming next year, 2026. So I was very excited, very happy to see that news and like the freaking trailer and stuff looks so freaking good. So yeah, I am just beyond excited because y'all know how much I love and enjoy uh this manga. So yeah, so getting to see the uh the anime brought to life finally was really dope. So but yeah, so Kane anime coming next year. It's next year is gonna be a insane year. So but yeah, so excited for that. I'm trying to think there were some like Nintendo Directs and stuff because like there's like a Kirby Air Ride Direct tomorrow. Uh and there were like some like other smaller Nintendo Direct stuff. I don't think there was nothing too much of substance I could think of in those. At least nothing like too much personally for me. Like, uh, yeah, I can't really think of anything super major or whatever and stuff. So, but since I'm already on the topic of game stuff, so I'll just mention very briefly a couple of things. So I played a little bit, and what I mean by a little bit is like maybe a couple hours tops of the Battlefield 6 beta these past couple of weekends. So the first weekend I played it and I was like, I don't know, like going into it, I was very excited because I've I think I've mentioned before like how much I enjoyed Battlefield back in the day. Like my first real online multiplayer experience was with Bad Company 2 back on PS3 when I was in college. And I just never forget that feeling and just like seeing like how realistic that stuff looked at the time, the destruction of the environments and all that stuff, whatever. And then loved Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, really enjoyed Battlefield 1 a lot as well, and then kind of fell off of it after that. So all that whole presentation thing that they did a couple weeks ago for Battlefield 6 looked really good. It looked like it sounded like they were saying all the right things. And so yeah. So the first weekend or whatever, I wasn't really feeling it too much. But thinking back on it, whatever, all I played was it was kind of like a team deathmatch style mode I had played, where it's pretty just quick kill, get the kills and stuff, whatever, and capture the points. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like maybe I'm just not feeling it. So I didn't really play too much anymore of that weekend. So then this past weekend, I was like, you know what? Let me play freaking Conquest, one of like the bigger uh, main attractions for Battlefield or whatever. And it clicked with me. I found my groove with it, and I was like, you know what? This is what I come to Battlefield for because I don't really do a lot of multiplayer, uh, fast-paced stuff, anyways. That's why I always enjoyed Battlefield more so over Call of Duty back in the day was just because I could kind of just like creep around the map, do what I need to do to assist the team. Primarily as like an engineer, you know, repairing vehicles, taking down enemy vehicles and stuff like that. So I enjoy that aspect of it. And that's what I had did this past weekend. I had a lot of fun playing though that mode and stuff, whatever, for the like I said, the couple hours that I did. So now I don't know if I will get Battlefield 6 on launch day or if I will wait a little bit. So I don't know. That'll be kind of like a wait and see situation with me with Battlefield. So, but I am excited about it and stuff. So, but we'll see. The other thing, aside from Battlefield, that I had played was I played the demo for this game called Hell Is Us. So this is kind of like I don't know, like dystopian kind of somewhat sci-fi-ish style game where basically you play as this guy who back in the day, so I guess basically there was like this like big war that broke out, and I believe if I'm remembering right that this area was like quarantined or something like that. And so as a baby or a small child, I think his mother or somebody like smuggled him out of there wherever. And so all these years later, he's coming back as an adult to, I think he's trying to find his mother or something like that. Like I said, pardon me for the fuzzy memory of everything. Okay, so here's kind of like a shorter description of it. Um, a United Nations peacekeeper named Remy goes absent without leave and ventures into the war-torn country of Hadea to find his parents, only to discover that the region is infested with supernatural beings following a mysterious event named the Calamity. So, the thing with this game is that it is kind of like a semi-open world where it kind of has like decent sized little areas to explore, and the main thing with the game is that it's basically about navigating the space on your own. And what I mean by that is that there's not a bunch of like quest markers and different stuff like that. There's just that is just blatantly being like, hey, go here, do this, do that. You explore, talk to people, gather information, and that's how you progress. Now, what I will say that I did enjoy about how things were, at least with like the hour or so I had played of the demo, was talking to people, inspecting the environment, and like I said, it's listening and paying attention got me to where I needed to go. And so it would be like you talk to somebody and they'd be like, yeah, go check out such and such. It's located at the northeast corner of, the piney woods outside of town. And then you get there, whatever, find whatever you need, and then, you kind of just go from there exploring. And so even when it comes to like solving puzzles and stuff, like there was like this like gate thing I had to unlock inside of this dungeon, and inside of the environment, there were kind of like three different rooms that had little sayings on the wall. There was like it was like first came the people to the tower, and uh, you know they had to deal with the twin serpents and blah blah blah, and then the last one was like and lastly you know, they had to traverse through the fire, whatever. So you kind of take those clues or whatever, and so when you look at this door, there are symbols on the wall or whatever, and so you kind of like, okay, well, just thinking logically of how the things were phrased, it was one that clearly said, and lastly, or and finally, and then one of them that was like, and first came. So it's okay, so you pretty much just go from there. It's like, okay, well, first came the people to the tower. There's one of those symbols is a tower looking thing. Okay, do that. Something with the serpents, whatever. Okay, there's a snake looking symbol, and then another one is the fire thing. Okay, the little fire symbol. Okay, that was pretty much in a general sense, whatever. But like I said, that was from exploring the environment, navigating, taking in clues and stuff. And I like how you had this little data pad that also kind of helps you keep track of stuff, whatever. So it's like, you might have an item and it's like, this came from you know, the piney woods, that this emblem was located inside of, you know, Rufus Cave in the Piney Woods. So it's pretty good about putting a decent description on items and different things you find and collect or whatever to kind of help keep your mind reminded of like, oh, okay, that's what this was. This is what this is and stuff, whatever. So, and then aside from the exploration stuff, whatever, there are these different creatures, and so from that standpoint, it's kind of just like a standard third person action adventure style game where it's kind of like dealing with like crowd control in a little bit or whatever, where you might have a few different enemies trying to attack you, and so you have different weapons to attack them with, ways to kind of like stun slash distract them, so on and so forth. So, but yeah, so overall, it was a pretty decent demo that I played. Does very good on the atmosphere as well because I was playing with headphones and stuff, so like just like the sounds and the music and stuff, whatever, it like really put you into that world and stuff. So, but yeah, so don't know if it's one I will definitely probably not gonna play day one or whatever, but maybe down the road might pick it up. So, but yeah, so Hell is Us, that is the name of that game, and I think that is primarily it game wise that I played. So I think let's see. So I think we were jumping to talking about some of these shows and stuff. Yeah. We're gonna start talking about some of these shows real quick. Okay, so first up, I'm gonna talk about common side effects. So this is I guess they call like a adult animated series. I watched it on HBO Max, and it had 10 episodes. So this series, first of all, it has a very, very interesting art style that definitely takes a little bit to get used to. Shout out to my nephew Isaiah, if you're listening. Shout out to you. But yeah, we was talking about it earlier, whatever, about how it kind of took us a little bit to kind of get used to it. But once you do, the because the story and everything does a really good job of pulling you in and getting you invested early on out the gate. So it pretty much follows one of the main characters is this guy named Marshall. Marshall, uh, who, from what I remember, like it's not really like understood like how he has so much money, um, but he ends up discovering this mushroom called the Blue Angel mushroom that seems to have healing properties that can cure seemingly anything. And I mean anything as far as like it regenerates stuff, whatever. Yeah. So, and so upon him finding this mushroom, he ends up reconnecting with an old high school friend named Francis, who also happens to work at a pharmaceutical company. And so they end up kind of collaborating together, trying to figure out more about this mushroom, how to grow it, how to potentially get it out there to more people, while also dealing with big pharma and the government. Because this series is a good example of probably what would happen in real life with this stuff of somebody finds a potential thing that can cure, you know, previously uncurable diseases and different stuff like that or whatever. And so obviously it's gonna get on a lot of people's radar and stuff, whatever. It's gonna be like, nah, we don't know, we don't want that. But also people are like, oh, we want it, but we're gonna try to manipulate and you know, uh, overproduce it and yada 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 whatever. So yeah, so it was just like a crazy, action-packed 10 episodes of this show dealing with freaking Marshall for the most part, like just trying to be a good, helpful dude, but also in constant fear of his life. And he legit pretty much dies or almost dies several times in this series. And so luckily he has the mushrooms nearby or whatever to where it's always helped him kind of get away and stuff. But one of the side effects, quote unquote, with this mushroom thing is that you will see these little gray people thingies or whatever, as well as like visions of other people and stuff. So it kind of starts making you question, like, okay, is me getting healed and stuff worth it for, this stuff I'm saying or whatever. But yeah, but all in all though, yeah, it was a really fun watch. So this is one that like I remember trying to start the first episode a few times because this just came out earlier this year. But I don't know. I just like I said, I think it's partially the art style and stuff. So I just kind of just kept putting it off. And finally, a couple weeks ago, I was like, you know what, man? Like I keep hearing about the show. I really need to just power through that first episode and just finish it and watch it or whatever. And I was okay. I'm in, and I kept watching like a couple episodes a day or whatever over the course of like a week. And man, before I knew it, I was heavily invested, constantly shocked at some of the crazy stuff that was happening. Like I said, from just some of like the backstabbing to the people trying to abuse it, to people trying to kill Marshall, all this stuff. So, but yeah, so common side effects is one that I definitely recommend. Like I said, if you're looking for something a little bit different, uh, that like I said, it'll kind of keep you on the edge of your seat a little bit and stuff. So, but yeah, check it out. Like I said, it's on HBO Max for common side effects. Let's see. Next up, I think I'm gonna do Department Q. Now, this is one I literally just found like uh end of last week because it just came out. Matter of fact, let me look at something real quick with Department Q. Um, yeah. When did this come out? Department Q came out in May. Okay, so it's been a few months, but yeah. So far it's one season, has 9 episodes, and so the setup and stuff for this show. So the premise is, so it follows a detective named Carl Mork, who was recently involved in a shooting. So the show, or early in the show, whatever, him and his partner were kind of like on the scene, responding to uh, a murder incident that happened nearby. And while they are there investigating, somebody was still on site, popped out, and shot both of them or whatever. And so he survived, uh, but obviously trying to figure out what happened that kind of led to these circumstances, like who shot him and yada yada yada. So throughout all this, whatever. So Detective Mork, he is not well liked. He is the type of character that is a true blue butthole character, but he is very good at his job, so that's why he still has a job and stuff, whatever, despite controversies and different things like that. So some higher ups comes to his supervisor and is like, "Hey, we got to prove from some government funding if basically you open up this new department to kind of help uh, work on some cold cases or some unsolved crimes." And so the boss, uh, the commander, Moira, she puts Mork in charge, and that is why it's called Department Q, because they get put into this old office space that seemingly was like a shower slash bathroom area or whatever, because there's like showers on one side of the area, a couple of toilets sitting there, maybe a urinal or two. And so this is kind of like I said, kind of like the underground basement level of the police department and stuff. And so she kind of like, hey, well, you're gonna be in charge of this or whatever, because kind of trying to like keeping him employed, but kind of like trying to keep him off to the side. Hey, go over in the corner and do this or whatever. And so he ends up with over the course of the show, kind of like a ragtag group of people that join his team and stuff. that eventually leads them to trying to uncover a previously unsolved case. So one of my favorite characters is this guy named Akram Salim. He is a Syrian. He is a former Syrian policeman, um, and he is very good at what he does. Like he is very quiet, very attentive, but he has some skills to where hey, if he need to get some information out of somebody, he know pressure points and different things like that or whatever and stuff. So 'cause I remember the first time he met somebody or whatever and they try to run up on him or whatever, he grabs some like pressure points under their neck, like they like near like their windpipe, whatever. And yeah, so he doing stuff like that, breaking legs and stuff. Like he is a brutal dude if he gets pushed that far, but he is always through what seems like chaos. He is always calm, cool, and collected. So he ends up working with Mark, and they come across this old case of this former lawyer who basically she was always kind of in some like controversial cases and stuff. And so she had lost a big case. And she has a younger brother who has uh, a disability from a head injury that he suffered as a child. She takes him like, "Hey, we're just gonna get away, go back to the you know our hometown or whatever," and she ends up disappearing during this trip back home or whatever, and she's been gone for 4 years. And so that is kind of like the setup and crux of this show is this ragtag detective group trying to solve this mystery and stuff, and it was really good. It was really good because, like I said, you got the part of the story where you got these guys trying to figure out, piece together clues, basically going back and like retracing steps of of old things related to the case, and kind of looking at from a different perspective or questioning more people and different things like that or whatever. And so, yeah. So overall, like I said, it was a really solid 9 episode run that I hope we see another season soon, hopefully next year or so. Because there is still more to explore as far as like the overarching thing of like, hey, who freaking shot Mork and his partner or whatever, and then hopefully also another really interesting case for them to tackle and to solve and stuff. So, bam. So Detective or Department Q is the name of that one. All right, next up, the Lazarus Project. So this is another one that's also on Netflix. Now this one has 2 seasons, 16 episodes total. Now, sadly, I believe it got canceled at least for now after season 2. So the premise behind this show was it basically did so it follows this main guy named George that's on the cover of it. And basically he ends up encountering this group that are basically tasked with preventing um what's the best way to describe it? Basically extinction level threats. So something that happens that's going to pretty much wipe out a vast majority of humanity. So how they accomplish this is that they have a way to checkpoint the years. It's like a video game. So July 1st is the checkpoint. So let's say, okay, hey, there's going to be a horrible catastrophe that happens uh, November 15th. Well, they do as much preparation and stuff leading up to it or whatever. The event happens, things go really bad. They reset back to July 1st and basically try again. Like, okay, well, hey, this is what we did last time. less. And of course, all of these people that are involved in this project, they retain their memories. But everything else around, nobody else around knows or remembers anything, whatever, and nothing is guaranteed to be exactly 100% the same. So, so that is like the basic premise of the show is that they are trying to prevent disasters and stuff, whatever, basically trying to make it to the next year, cross the next checkpoint or whatever. But for the most part, majority of people that have this ability, they are injected with a serum that allows them to deal with the reverse or whatever. Now, George, our main character, he is a rare exception to where he is born with the basically with like it's called a mutant gene that organically grants him the ability to revert and stuff, whatever and stuff. So that's kind of how the series starts off with him, going through. He wakes up, kisses his wife and or no, his girlfriend at the time, and he goes out to a meeting to pitch this app he's working on. Yada yada yada. Things go good. He gets the funding. He ends up proposing to the girl, and other things happen. Well, while he's just living his life or whatever, a catastrophe happens and everything has to reset. And so he wakes up on July 1st again. And at first he's like, this is kind of weird, kind of getting like a deja vu feeling, essentially. But, he goes through, does his thing, whatever. And he's kind of seen as crazy because he gets to the meeting again. And he's like, hey, like, we already had this meeting. And the investor's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, yeah, dude, like, I already showed you the thing. You loved it. You gave me lots of money, yada, yada, yada. And it ends up, I think it ends up falling through, whatever the case may be. And so he starts getting paranoid a bit and stuff. And then it resets again. So there's a lot of resets or whatever. And so eventually he meets somebody from the Lazarus Project who is like, hey, have you been experiencing such and such? Because like it's like they'll watch people that are naturally getting it or whatever, just kind of observe like, okay, are they realizing what's happening and stuff? And so it just because this happened to be a really bad global catastrophe of why they had to reset like a dozen plus times. And so they really started effing with his head. And so he joins the team and it kind of goes from there. Now, at first, George was pretty cool. Kind of goes off the rails a bit because, which understandably so, like mild spoilers, but it's like something happens to somebody he cares about, and so obviously you would ask, like, hey, can we reset so I can basically selfishly help this person? And they're like, nah, we can't do that or whatever. Like, we only reset for like global catastrophe stuff, whatever. And so, yeah, kind of seeing the lengths a person would go to try to force that reset to happen was pretty interesting. But over the course of the series, a little bit later on, I kind of started to sour on George a little bit, just because it was just like sometimes it's just like, dude, like, what are you doing, man? But but all in all though, like I really overall I enjoyed the show, and I wish and hope that maybe somehow they might get at least a third season to come back and kind of like fully close off everything, because they kind of wrapped up things in a sense, or at least like a portion of a storyline, but leaves the door open majorly for more to happen. But yeah, this series was like super cool, super dope. Um, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna just give like a flat out hey spoiler warning because I need to talk about some specific stuff. So things pretty much continue to escalate with these loops to the point to where their event eventually begins to have legit time travel in the show where they go back a lot of years and stuff. And so basically trying to, the present day gets stuck in a crazy loop that is shortened to freaking 3 weeks. So everybody is reliving these 3 weeks over and over and over, but eventually reality's gonna tear apart, yada yada yada. So they're like, okay, well, we gotta go way back to figure something out a decade plus ago to help us out in the current day and stuff. So, but one of the other fascinating things with this show, like, they just like really highlighted how brutal these loops can be. Was, I'll just say, the pregnancy slash baby loop, where there was a big catastrophe that happens. Two of the Lazarus agents or whatever were, married and stuff, and they originally had got pregnant before the reset day or whatever, and they had a baby boy and all this stuff, whatever, and then they unfortunately had to reset. And so when they reset, she still found out she was pregnant, but it changed and it was a girl this time. And then, they ended up having to reset again, and then they ended up planning the pregnancy for after the loop. But the unfortunate thing is that now, because of the unfortunate timing of, they were in a year where something really bad happens and they had to reset a lot, that meant that these characters had to go through the pregnancy and having the baby over and over and over again. And of course, the wear and tear, of course, of, hey, catastrophe happens, losing everybody, okay, going back, you're pregnant again. And so that was so insane to watch, just because it was like, okay, the first time, okay, yay, joy, whatever. And then eventually it's just like, yo, what the heck is going on? And yeah, so that's just like a small example of like how brutal this show can be with the loops and stuff, whatever, because everybody on this team or whatever can remember everything. So like I said, if they got shot and killed, or something other crazy happens to them or whatever, well, when they reset, they come back and they're still alive, but they're gonna have the memory of, getting shot or whatever and stuff. So, but yeah, so there were some pretty crazy loop situations in this show. But yeah, all in all, though, it was a solid show. Like I said, I was very sad to learn that it's pretty much done for now, because these seasons came out a few years ago, because season one was 2022 and season two was 23. So yeah, here we are 2 years later, nothing. So, but who knows, maybe we might look out someday and get to see more. Okay, before I jump into the anime that I watched, I gotta I've got to talk about this at the beginning of the episode or whatever, but shout out to my wife finding little duck off spots to go and eat. So um, she messaged me earlier when I was on my way back to the house and was just like, hey, you want to sneak off, get a little dinner or whatever. And so she found a little place. Um, it was like a little, what's it called? Like a revolving sushi bar. It's called Kura, Kura, Revolving Sushi Bar. So nice little place to where, and of course, this might be a more familiar thing, but I'm kind of still new to sushi, even though how much I love seafood and stuff. I've never really gotten into sushi, just because typically I just know it is like, oh, just raw fish or whatever, but I've learned a lot. And so basically, you sit at your table and there's just like a constantly revolving a conveyor belt of different dishes and different types of sushi and stuff going around the restaurant or whatever. And so the basic sushi plates and stuff, whatever, are like $3 a plate. And they basically, for the most part, they give you like two decent sized pieces of sushi and stuff, whatever, on these little plates and stuff. And it's pretty neat because like once you eat it or whatever, there's a little like little trap door thing on the side of your table that you slide your uh, plate into whatever, and the plate has a scanner thing, whatever. And so as you're eating, it's keeping count. So there's also like a little screen up on the wall next to y'all table, whatever, where you can order stuff, whatever. But it's also keeping count of the plates and stuff. So it's kind of okay. Hey, like I said, the base most of the basic stuff is like $3 or whatever. So it's like, oh, okay, well, you add 7 plates, 7 times 3, 21. Okay, and then your drinks, the price of that, yada yada yada. So pretty affordable, honestly, whatever. So we ended up between me and my wife, we only paid like $30, and we had 7 plates, and then another $6-7 for the drinks because our drinks were like $3 a piece, whatever. So like I said, altogether it was like under $35. And so we were there for maybe about an hour or so. Ate good or whatever. Tried some different little sushis and stuff. Had some really good like salmon ones and a snow crab sushi thing, and I can't remember what that other one was. There was also just like some like these like 2 jumbo shrimps on a plate thing, whatever. That was really good. Uh, but yeah, so just had to give them a little shout out and stuff. So we would definitely be back. Like I said, that was a nice, quick little getaway snack to have. So, but all right. So I'm gonna jump into this anime I had watched a while or a couple weeks ago called Arte. Now, Arte is. Let me see. Arte. Sorry, I'm gonna see if I can pull it up real quick. Um. Anywho, let me get it pulled up. Okay, so this anime is 12 episodes long. Originally came out in 2020. And funny enough, the manga for this literally just ended like a few weeks ago. When did it finish? Come on, load. Anywho, the manga just for this just finished recently as well. But yeah, so this season was 12 episodes long, and so it takes place in 16th century Florence. And the main character, Arte, she is born into a noble family, but she's always had a love for art and drawing and stuff. Well, her mother doesn't really approve because you know how things were back in that time, whatever. She's supposed to be getting married off and yada yada yada, and her mother takes all her paintings and drawings and stuff and burns them and stuff, whatever. Well, she ends up, I can't remember if she escaped or she left. Whatever the case may be, she ends up pretty much leaving home and becomes an apprentice to this guy named Leo. So this older dude. So Arte, she is I think like 16 or so. This older guy, Leo, is kind of like a recluse art guy, or whatever, where he runs a very small shop. He's known for taking no apprentices, no help, whatever. But Arte ends up impressing him, and he agrees. Okay, you know what? I'll take you in whatever. I'll teach you. You'll work under me. Yada yada yada. And from there, it is just a very nice kind of like a slice of life, coming of age series about this young girl who is pretty much doing her best to prove to herself and to those around her that like, hey, I can be great at this as well, and it's not just my background or where I came from and yada 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 or whatever and stuff. So, but yeah, all in all, like I said, it was just like a really good show. Like it looks really nice. The voice actors were good, and I just enjoyed seeing the journey and growth of Arte from her. Of course, obviously having moments of self doubt, dealing with naysayers because obviously this is a male dominated field back in this time period and stuff, but also Leo teaching and training her in a way to make her able to withstand and excel the criticism and stuff that people try to lay upon her. And also along the way, Arte learns to, I guess, like see beyond the surface with other people as well, because there's like this one lady who is over like this brothel thing or whatever. And so, you know, the stereotypes and the typical things that come with somebody in that line of, not a brothel, but courtesan, in that line of work. But over time, even with her, Arte begins to realize that she's misjudging her the same way that a lot of people immediately cast her to the side just because she's a girl wanting to do and study art and stuff. And so along the way, she meets different characters like Veronica and different stuff like that. And you continue to, like I said, see Arte learn and grow, get more backstory on her mentor Leo and some of these other characters surrounding and stuff. So, but yeah, this is one that I definitely wouldn't mind potentially jumping onto and reading the manga at some point. Like I said, especially now that it's finished, because I don't think it was super long. 21 volumes. Yeah, ran from 2013 to 2025. So yeah, so not super long, a decent length though, but yeah. So that is Arte. Like I said, I watched it on Crunchyroll. Like I said, it was just 12 episodes, but it's a show that I think that I recommend you checking out. Okay, so I think that's primarily it. Just to kind of just shout out a couple of shows. I'm still really enjoying The Water Magician. Just the only thing with that show is like sometimes it is like truly a slow grind with that show, but it is one that I see the potential, but it is definitely like a slow burn is the better term for it. That I feel like Water Magician is going to be a really good binge for somebody later down the road that comes to it later. Um, just because it is just like so much teasing of, okay, hey, things are about to happen, things are about to pop up or whatever. Just because like prime example, this one magician chick who doesn't believe his buddy that's talking about this technique that Rio can do. And so it's all this beating around the bush and whispers and stuff. And I'm just like, just go and just ask the dude, like, hey, can you do this technique? And hey, can you show me this technique, whatever? And Rio would just do it over there because that's the type of character he is. But yes, it's stuff like that. But there have been some signs and some episodes here and there that are like, okay, yeah, yeah, there is some really good stuff cooking right beneath the surface. So aside from that, Clevatess, another really good one. That one is definitely kind of like the highlight for me each week. And this past episode, what is it, episode 7? Very intriguing. I continue enjoying over these last few episodes since I last recorded us kind of getting more information on some of the other uh, beast creatures and stuff in the different parts of the continent and stuff. But then, like the situation that Clevatess and the girls found themselves in this episode, pretty intriguing or whatever. I was like, oh, okay, well, hey, everybody's in trouble right now. but but yeah, so Clevatess still a must watch. New Saga, I've still continued to enjoy, primarily because with that show, I like how things are changing. And what I mean by that is that, like example, on both sides of it, there are characters that have died that were alive in Kyle's previous timeline, and vice versa. There are characters still alive past when they died previously. And so that's kind of created some new dynamics and new kind of like branching parts of the story, that's even kind of keeping Kyle on his toes and stuff, whatever, because it's like, okay, well, I know this person, but it's like, okay, well, you didn't really know this part of them, or there was something about them you wasn't really aware of and stuff. So yeah, so that stuff has been kind of fun and interesting to kind of see unfold. And yeah, that's primarily it. I need to catch up on To Be Hero X soon because I am 6 episodes behind. I don't know. It just, I think after like the music singer hero or whatever, I just kind of fell off of it then or whatever. But I've heard some crazy stuff that's happened recently, so it's probably time for me to catch up very soon because it's gonna be ending in a handful of episodes. So yeah. So but aside from that, that's pretty much it. Anime wise, manga wise, I had caught up on Still of the Celestial Shadows. So I read the three most recent volumes that were released, and yeah, that series continues to be really good. There was like this like dice slash gambling arc that happened. That was pretty interesting to kind of watch and see how they literally beat the odds with that situation, and then seeing this new one kind of pop up where the main character Ryudo, where he is kind of learning and how to expand his abilities and stuff like that. So that was pretty fun to kind of watch and see how all that stuff unfolded. So yeah, so shout out to that. Spy Family had a pretty fun new chapter yesterday where things are kind of set up where the old couple that moved in next door maybe like a dozen or so chapters ago, their name popped up again in some files from the Desmonds. So very curious to kind of see where that story is going to go. Itchy the Witch, we're kind of getting starting to go into a new story arc because things finally wrapped up with Goku Rocky's, I believe that's if I'm pronouncing that right, his whole arc and stuff, whatever. So just cool, just ready to see where that's going next. One Piece just being One Piece, uh, kind of getting some very cool rocks flashback stuff going on right now. That's just been just flashbacks in One Piece are just always fun to see and to experience and stuff. So, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it manga wise. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this episode up. So, as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. You can find me everywhere at Dad Needs to Talk. And yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. Hopefully, it's not gonna be 3 more weeks again before I record. But I know I do plan on hopefully this week going and watching that Highest to Lowest, that new Denzel and Spike Lee movie that's out in theaters right now. And yeah, just gonna continue to find new stuff to watch and games to play and everything in between. So, but yeah. So I am out. So as I always say, treat yourself to something nice, read some manga, watch some anime, TV shows, and movies, play some video games, and of course, live your best life. And with that, I am out. Happy back to school season to all the parents out there and the students. Best of luck to y'all. And I'll catch y'all on the next one. Y'all be easy. Peace.